What's going on, my friends? My name is Slamrai, and if you're new here, yep, this is my intro. We kind of just dive right into things. With that in mind, here is 45 minutes of some of the craziest situations that unfolded on TikTok in 2023. Let's begin.
The Ken Walk situation explained. So by now, I'm sure a few of you have seen videos talking about this guy named Ken. And if you're anything like me, you're getting kind of sick of part 2s and follow-ups, just people throwing random little pieces of information at you, and we're gonna give it to you in one fell swoop. Everything you need to know about the Ken Walk's controversy. And to truly understand how things got this way, we gotta take it back to April of 2020. When he first began posting on the platform. Most of his original content revolved around himself cooking under the name Chef Ken, while also throwing a few fitness-related videos in there for good measure. And at some point, he just begins throwing a whole bunch of random uploads into the endless abyss of the algorithm. That is, till he posted an investigative-style video looking into a set of Louis Vuitton dumbbells, racking up about 1.1 million views in the process. Well, he would sort of roll with this idea for quite a while until inevitably views dropped off and he had to go looking for something else, which led to kids' books as well as a video about the purge becoming enough to put him on famousbirthdays.com. Interesting. But if we fast forward all the way up into March of this year, Ken posted a video titled Chicago Friends Do Not Accept a Ride from a Stranger. In this video, it's explained that he, along with several other individuals in the Chicago area, have been randomly offered rides from people in really weird places. And then it was like all of a sudden a flip just got switched. Almost every single one of his videos from that point on all had to do with this really weird string of deaths across the country, but mainly in the Chicago area. More so going into detail about why he believes this is the work of either a serial killer or multiple killers. And this is where things start to spiral out of control. You see, Ken starts going into detail about new information he has come across that could quite possibly crack a few of these cases. Now at first, not a lot of people out there were skeptical of the things he was saying. It wasn't until he started pushing this issue further, making more wildly outlandish claims that, lo and behold, a family of one of those victims ends up reaching out to Ken. You know, to figure out just what it is he's talking about. However, when they did, Ken would allegedly block them in return. But it was really and truly his next few moves that would ultimately lead to what people are saying is a well-deserved downfall. See, Ken, while in the middle of one of these videos, which has since been removed, ever so gently starts mentioning the name of an app for a company he co-founded called Foresight, which is essentially what many people are calling a travel planning app. And within just a couple of days, Foresight's social media team made a post talking about how much of a genius idea it was that Ken threw their name into one of these viral videos, racking up more than 800 downloads in the past 48 hours. It was at this point, TikTokers such as Meredith Lynch and Justin Burnett started raising questions about the ethics of advertising over potentially misleading and harmful information, such as deepening the wounds in the lives of these still grieving families while also giving them a false hope he had actually stumbled across something. And then it happened. Ken posted the following 2 videos, which would later become the pinnacle point of the situation.
Somebody just knocked on my door and it's 8:30 at night on a Sunday. And so I go and I check in, it's not someone I know. And so I open it, I'm like, what's up? And they're like, hey, my name's X and I'm a private investigator looking into the smiley face group. He actually just went back downstairs to secure his parking and he's gonna come back. He's in a full black suit and everything. So I'm just gonna post this now as like evidence that somebody just came to my house at 8:30 at night on a Sunday night.
I literally had not contacted me previously.
In a follow-up video, he said this guy had tracked him down in order to recruit him into a group of private investigators looking into those cases. This was the very moment people from all over the world began questioning everything this guy said. Some even going as far as to say this entire thing seemed completely made up as a ploy to go viral and market that app, throwing out comments like what you're seeing on screen here. And believe me, look, I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but we haven't even made it to the part where he tried to pass off an FBI do not reply email as evidence. They were trying to recruit him for work he had been posting on his TikTok. However, the final factor in his downfall came in the form of a video stating he has just cracked the case and how the families of these victims would soon be getting some closure. Well, needless to say, a sizable portion of this community began absolutely coming at him like wild jackals, stating he had been using these cases more so. They now firmly believed he had been lying about progress that was being made on them in order to promote Foresight, which finally brings us up to speed with what just happened over the past few days. Ken and Forsyth have since parted ways. In addition to this, he would post not one but two separate videos addressing the situation. The first of which he sort of apologizes for intermingling the investigation and the advertisements at the same time. And in the second, he essentially tries to reassure everyone that the investigations and everything he's been looking into are very real. So at this point, the only thing anyone can really do is just wait and see what happens. But I gotta tell you, there's a few people out there who have gone as far as to dig back 12 years into this dude's past in order to pull out some tweets that he once posted when he was a teen. Which is why I believe if everything turns out to be made up, people aren't going to be letting him off the hook that easy. And it really seems like this is one of those things that's going to go on for quite a while. Regardless, this is why he will be making our list. Nope, sorry, wrong video. Friends and frenemies alike, I give you Madison Russo, otherwise known on TikTok as Maddie Russo. Creator class type, pity me. Specialty, Munchausen. Claim to fame, dare I say, downright scam artist. Well, back in early 2022, there was this seemingly heartbreaking story of a girl named Maddie, a 19-year-old college student who had currently been attending classes at St. Ambrose College, located in Iowa. It was around this time she began posting about her battle with the following 3 illnesses. 1. Leukemia. 2. Stage 2 pancreatic cancer. And lastly, a tumor the size of a football that had wrapped itself around her spine and thus was not able to be removed. But don't just take it from me, she would essentially double down on these claims in a 2-minute long video over on TikTok.
So, when my older brother Tyler turned 18 years old, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which is a chronic autoimmune disease where the pancreas no longer produces insulin on its own. With this being said, I was also tested to see if I would develop type 1 diabetes and see if I was positive for any of the antibodies. So when the test came back, I ended up being positive for all 5 out of 5 antibodies. And in February of 2020, I was also diagnosed with type 1 at 17 years old. Fast forward to February of 2022, I had yearly lab work done just with my primary care provider as a standard checkup. And aside from starting to feel just a little bit off, my lab work came back and my white blood cell counts were not in normal range. So further testing was then done. And on February 10th of 2022, quite possibly the worst day of my life occurred. I got the call from my oncologist and they found a mass on my pancreas and I had stage 2 pancreatic cancer at just 19 years old. Scared is an understatement. I was terrified and I definitely still am. But I'm really glad I went to my yearly health check because it would have been so easy to just skip it and say I'm fine. So please take my experience and get regular lab work done because the sooner you catch anything that is wrong, the better chance of outcome and survival you would have. And it really could save your life like it did mine. So after finding out, I started treatment right away, consisting of oral chemo and radiation. So far, I have completed 8 rounds of chemo and over 50 rounds of radiation. And then at my 3-month scan, I was informed that the tumor on my pancreas was shrinking and it was responding to treatment. However, it's also spread to my blood and is acute lymphoblastic leukemia. There is a mental health crisis in America right now, and I want to touch on the impact that cancer and chronic disease patients can go through. When your life changes in an instant and many days are spent vomiting and pain and being restricted with what you can do, your mind also becomes sick.
Now, to make matters even worse, Madison went on to say doctors had given her an 11% chance of making it through the next 5 years. Well, needless to say, Madison's story went absolutely viral, racking up millions upon millions of views, even being touched on by the mainstream media. And well, what do you know? At this point, every single one of her videos begins talking about her day-to-day struggles with these illnesses. For example, posting videos related to the difficulties of her chemo treatments, as well as balancing out her school and work life, talking about how worn down she had been, yet felt it was important to continue moving forward as best she could. Now what's more is, for the most part, she had done this with an absolute smile on her face, portraying this very much I'm gonna beat this type of attitude and you can too. Well, this in turn would draw many individuals who actually had these conditions to her account, becoming sort of an inspiration to them. And eventually, she begins taking on several interviews with various organizations stating the following. I remember getting the news. I remember hanging up the phone and I was an absolute mess. I was literally bawling, but somehow I ended up getting the courage to wipe away my tears and went back to class, which, now when I think about it, was actually pretty crazy. Over on Facebook, Maddie began posting these sort of long drawn-out inspirational snippets telling those suffering from these illnesses that they were not alone, that we can all work through our conditions together. Moreover, Madison's mother will begin updating people on her own Facebook as to how things were going for her daughter, informing people of her chart readings, Maddie's various forms of treatment, and how she had started a new clinical trial that would hopefully drastically improve her condition. In a later interview, Maddie would say, "Life has been pretty crazy. It's a catch-22. I can't win for losing, and I feel like I've been rocked to my soul, and right now everything is kind of uncertain. I just want to know my game plan, and right now I don't know what that is." In addition to this, Maddie went on to state that she had been maintaining a 4.0 GPA, had a part-time job, was golfing in her free time, all the while going through her chemo and radiation treatments. Maddie would also use these interviews along with her socials, i.e. TikTok and her Facebook, to essentially promote a GoFundMe, the objective of which was to help cover current medical costs as well as the cost of her future treatments. And over the course of the next few months, Madison raised roughly $38,000. But one thing Maddie didn't really seem to understand was the more attention she brought to all of these accounts, more and more medical professionals would lay eyes on them, as well as individuals who were actually suffering from these illnesses at that current point in time. And one of the first things people began pointing out was the fact that she had been going through chemotherapy as well as radiation treatments for quite a while, yet her appearance didn't really seem to correlate. A lot of people began questioning why she still had her hair. But let's be clear, there's a few pieces of basic information about this subject we should all understand before moving forward. Chemotherapy is a treatment that uses drugs to stop the growth of cancer cells, either by killing cells or by stopping them from dividing. However, many forms of chemo also target healthier cells within the body, leading to things like a weaker immune system, in turn making patients more susceptible to things like infections. And yes, hair loss can also be attributed to these treatments. But there are in fact certain medications or forms of treatment that don't always cause patients to lose their hair. As a matter of fact, for many, this doesn't occur unless a more aggressive form of treatment becomes necessary, for example, combining certain chemotherapy drugs with radiation treatments. Now, the reason I felt like it was important to understand this is because a lot of those comments in regards to her hair could somewhat be explained. But it was the following series of photographs that truly led to her well-deserved downfall. In accordance with the picture shown on screen now, actual cancer patients and medical professionals alike were quick to point out this picture was a load of crap. For one, her feeding tube, so to speak, had barely been inserted into her nose, shown by that little bit of purple that you can see just under her nose right there. But more so, the port was just a bunch of straight up jumbled up tube endings completely held together with regular Scotch tape. Another photo depicting Maddie's hair loss, i.e. a clump of hair in the sink shown here, had obviously been cut out with scissors, and it really doesn't take a rocket scientist to see what I mean. In addition to this, Maddie would post a few photos on her Facebook as well as her TikTok that when reverse image searched would come back to various actual cancer patients, one of which wasn't even taken in the United States, none of which were actually taken in the treatment center that she had allegedly been going to. It was at this point medical professionals began contacting her local police department, informing them of every single one of the aforementioned discrepancies. Now, one of the first things investigators would do was call that specific medical center in which Maddie had claimed to be receiving her treatments, asking them if they currently had any patients with the following three conditions. 1. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. 2. Stage 2 pancreatic cancer, which is usually a death sentence in and of itself for reasons we're not going to get into here, and a tumor, to which they responded not a single person ever had. Investigators then went on to subpoena Maddie's medical records, to which, surprise, surprise, Madison had a completely clean bill of health. Well, on January 23rd of 2023, Russo was arrested for theft by means of deception, along with being held on a $10,000 bond. she had swindled almost $40,000 from over 400 individuals, and upon searching her residence, they would confiscate the following items: a 2023 Kia Sportage, a brown paper bag containing medical supplies, an IV pole, a feeding pump, a couple of rolls of medical bandages, cash, financial documents, and lastly, nausea medication that was not even made out to her name. Now it's worth pointing out, that very same day, the man who set up her GoFundMe ended up bailing her out. On top of that, there are a lot of people out there who firmly believe that Madison's mother was in on it the entire time. And that to me is one of those things that would just make this case 10 times more crazy than it already is. Like, was Madison truly that good of a mass manipulator to those in her inner circle?
Now, with that in mind, in early January of 2023, Madison was officially charged with theft by means of deception. She was also ordered to pay back $39,000 in restitution.
StanzaGate entirely explained. So we're not gonna lie to you. This is hands down one of the craziest controversies over on TikTok you have never heard about. Break out the snacks, grab a beverage, because we're about to send you down one hell of a rabbit hole. This is everything you need to know about the StanzaGate controversy. It all began back in March of 2022, when author Sabina Lara posted a series of tweets in regards to a few things TikToker Aliza Grace had been doing. Things like blatantly stealing work from other authors, publishing it as her own, and even profiting off of that work. Not only through Amazon, but also showcasing that same stolen work to her following of more than 600,000 viewers. And to truly understand just how nuts this thing is, we gotta take it back to November of 2020, when Aliza first began posting on the platform. Which, side note, took a very long time for us to do. Reason being, we had to go back like 2 years, and at some point, she had been posting up to 24 times a day consecutively for months on end. Regardless, it is very important to note, from the beginning, Aliza had been uploading these videos of single pages out of a specific book, titled The Sun and Her Flowers, by an author known as Rupi Kaur. And after posting this book page by page in its entirety, she then cycled through a few other books by various authors prior to showcasing her own publications in that same way. Or so her followers thought, and still very much do. You see, it wouldn't be long until multiple authors with much smaller accounts on the platform stumbled across her videos, showcasing their work in her book with her name at the top of the page. No credit given, no acknowledgement, just blatant plagiarism at its finest. Now, while they tried to speak out about this in Aliza's comment section, her following was fairly quick to discredit these claims. Their comments were then deleted in accordance with being blocked from Aliza's page. It was at this point, one of those authors, Sabina Lara, began really digging into her publications, only to discover more than 70 instances of pure, unadulterated, quite literally unedited plagiarism. Sabina would then post her findings in a Twitter thread titled, "A Thread of Poems Aliza Grace has plagiarized, published, and is profiting from." And well, the first of those tweets contains a side-by-side comparison of a poem published by Sabina. What's more is almost a full year before Aliza had published this one right here, merely removing the word "to" and claiming it as her own. We have another from author Jay Strelot, claiming she wrote it again by removing a single word. Here's another one she found from author Ruby Dahl. "I wish that I could erase all your pain. I wish I could solve your problems. You know, the ones crumbling your heart and keeping them up at night." But this wasn't the only thing Sabina found when digging through Aliza's work. Not only were there several pages in these books left blank, some of those pages contained fewer than 8 words apiece. In addition to this, much of the content in these publications had been directly ripped from various generic quotes off of Twitter, essentially making a great deal of what she claims to be her own work simply compositions of quotes that have been widely used online for years. As a matter of fact, so much so, Sabina would later state, "Look, I've had to stop including all the stolen ones from generic internet quotes. Otherwise, I'd have to post every page from every book." Well, not too long after posting this thread, author Christine Amar began working with a lawyer to issue a cease and desist. But to no avail, they were unable to find any form of legitimate contact information for this author. Now, it's worth pointing out, many of these articles state Aliza has done a very good job at leaving little to no trace of her actual appearance online. In addition to this, they don't believe the woman depicted in her Amazon profile to actually be her. Well, if we scroll about halfway through her thousands upon thousands of posts, we find a time where Aliza had in fact started showing herself. But shortly thereafter, she reverted back to her original content and never showed her face again. Now believe me, I know this is a lot, but there's a big reason why no one's really heard about this until now. More recently, sizable creators such as Kyla Zhao, among others, have tried to spread awareness of this issue. But time and time again, the story would be suppressed under the more notable Tattoo-gate as well as the Kinwalk situation. Kyla, being one of the first unaffected authors to actually speak out, had this to say.
Aliza's fans say that they really love how relatable her poems are and how they accurately capture what a young adult feels. Most of her viral poems are blatantly copied from other people, both famous and non-famous. This poem about how her trust is like a mirror, it was copied from a quote by Lady Gaga.
In addition to this, several of these authors have tried to reach out to TikTok in order to get their work off her page, with only a few of those instances actually being successful. Now, while a majority of the authors want their work taken off the Amazon store, for others, at this point, they simply want her to acknowledge this issue and admit that she's been doing it. Regardless, my friends and frenemies alike. The Anthony Ferrer situation explained. So I'm sure by now a few of you have seen videos floating around talking about this guy named Anthony or the Timepiece Gentleman. Heck, you may have even tried to sit through his overly long confession only to find that it's nearly impossible to get through with all the tangents. That is why we're going to give you everything you need to know about the TPG scandal. You see, Anthony owns a business called the Timepiece Gentleman. They first started advertising on this platform back in 2019. And while at first this involved himself dangling thousands of dollars worth of watches over the balcony of his penthouse, he fairly quickly began to cultivate a following based off of the fact he claimed to be promoting honesty, integrity, and transparency in the world of consignments. And I quote directly from his website, "It wasn't until Anthony recognized a huge lack in market information and transparency between dealers and customers that he saw an opportunity." Now, this was further pushed out to his viewers in the many instances he tried to call out other scammers for attempting to scam him.
But why, I want to know, listen, I want to know why you're trying to ruin my reputation. I'm a con artist, I'm a scumbag because I'm trying to do the right thing, then take back what you said.
Okay, I will, bro. I will take
Am I a scumbag?
No.
Am I a con artist?
No, like I said, Anthony.
Because you had a big ass attitude last night behind a keyboard.
And then it was like all of a sudden, this guy's business went into hyperdrive. I mean, he was buying his employees Corvettes, Mustangs, and allowing them to essentially play games in order to pick their salaries with substantial signing bonuses. And to the average viewer, this just seemed like one of those instances someone had successfully used the power of social media to create a business powerhouse. However, this was yet another instance of how things on social media aren't always as they seem. Remember, he has essentially established himself as the middleman between buyers and sellers alike. And here's the thing. While those watches were being sold, that money just wasn't going back to the sellers. As a matter of fact, he had been doing this for so long and on such a large scale, he has allegedly placed himself into the hole for over $5 million, 3 of which pertains to 2 individuals, while the other $2 million came from the many sellers that had trusted him to be honest and transparent. And well, it just seems everything finally came to the head when he posted an extremely hard to get through 14-minute confession stating the following. 1.
I know my words don't mean anything right now, but I really am genuinely sorry.
2. He used $3 million to fund his day-to-day lifestyle, while the rest was blown on his many nights out to Vegas on gambling, substances, and women. 3. He lied to several clients about a robbery that did not happen. 4. He states that while spending their money was wrong, the backlash is simply too much. 5. He confessed to several clients leading up to this moment in various phone calls. And finally, 6. That his employees have since parted ways and that they had no idea this was going on. The rest could be considered rambling. Now, it's worth pointing out, a few creators out there are stating that this is purely a publicity stunt. However, it is also worth noting a few of his customers or consigners have started posting their quests to get watches back to the rightful owners, one of which has already happened. Now believe me, look, I know this is a lot, but lastly, he has since uploaded an additional video stating once again,
I apologize for the people that I've wronged, the people that I owe money.
But also,
You guys can go f*** yourself.
my friends and frenemies alike, this has been. Well, over the course of the past 2 months, you may have seen a few videos of people making an absurd amount of cakes out to a person named Trilby. And you may also have seen a few people talking about this woman in particular. But I'm also fairly confident that between all the follow-ups and other creators just milking this situation for every ounce of viewership they could get, people just kind of lost interest and stopped following along. Which is why we're going to give you everything you need to know about the CakeGate controversy. It all began on April 7th of 2023, when TikToker Kylie Allen posted a now viral video titled Worst Client Experience So Far. And in this video, she goes into detail about how a customer reached out through Facebook to order one of her 6-layer signature rainbow cakes. She then goes on a quick tangent, essentially trying to justify her part in this interaction by talking about how long she had been making these cakes. Kylie then goes into detail as to how these cakes are made, which is 6 rainbow layers. But vanilla buttercream in between. That same icing spread around the cake, alas, covering them from head to toe in sprinkles. What follows is essentially her version of this interaction. Upon arrival, she seemed very surprised the cake was covered in sprinkles. We explained to her that this is the way all of our signature rainbow cakes come, and they are covered in sprinkles. And if you want a saying, we just add it to the top of the cake with a layer of vanilla buttercream, and we use black buttercream for the writing. She then got super defensive and very rude about the price of the cake, even though this is how we decorate all of our signature rainbow cakes, which is in reference to the one currently being decorated on your screen now. Kylie then closes out this video by stating this customer even blasted them and posted on their Facebook, while also throwing out a final shot towards that customer about the way sprinkles are placed on their cakes. Well, seeing as Kylie had just over 1,000 followers at the time of posting, she had no idea this upload was gonna go absolutely viral, and it wouldn't be long until the algorithm did its thing in the form of presenting us with a response video from that customer. TikToker Ashley Freeman posted these photos of the cake in question, accompanied by screenshots of their messages exchanged after she had picked up the cake, essentially going as follows. Kylie, I'm not really sure what the problem with the cake is. This is how all of our standard rainbow cakes come. Moreover, it's decorated the same way as the 2 slices your mom had bought. Our 8-inch 3-layer rainbow cake is $59.99, so yes, a 6-layer is $75.99. To which Ashley simply responds, look at it, that's the problem. You know, I would have been willing to pay $90 for quality work, but no ma'am, this is absolute shite. And this is the exact moment that conversation took a turn for the worse, ultimately resulting in Kylie completely gaslighting the photo in question, whereas Ashley sends a few screenshots of a Facebook post she made bashing Kylie's bakery. Well, this response in turn would cause both videos to go viral in a whole new way, even being touched on by the mainstream media. Needless to say, people from all over the world began flocking over to Kylie's TikTok in order to bash her over that cake. But it was really her response to the situation that fueled the anger of the thousands who would head on over to Google and begin absolutely destroying her rating by leaving 1-star reviews, all leading up to the point where she would completely deactivate the review option. In addition to this, she would post the following heartfelt response.
Since you guys just love to talk about me and make viral videos about me, honestly, it's very funny to me. I'm not offended by your guys' comments because honestly, I mean, look at some of you. It's pointless, your time and effort, because it's not doing anything.
Well, once again, and for obvious reasons, things didn't really fare well for Kylie. Now it's worth pointing out, when people began digging through Kylie's Facebook, they stumbled across photos that had been taken from other bakeries, being used as reference photos for baking classes she was going to be teaching. Now, while Kylie's response went like,
now a viral video going around about how I use other people's work, and that's not true. I host cake decorating classes in my hometown, and I've done this for years. And I use inspiration photos as to what we will be creating during this class. My customers are well aware of this.
It is also worth noting she only added this disclaimer after she had been called out. Moreover, Ashley would go on to try and smooth things over several times, even deleting her initial response to Kylie's video. But when Kylie refused to do the same, both TikTokers sort of doubled down and just began bashing each other in their upcoming videos. And look, I understand the 2 defining factors in this situation were the appearance of the cake as well as the business owner's response. But when you truly dig into the details of this situation, both parties were quoted multiple times saying they never intended for this to go viral. One of them even stating they hate all the attention that it has brought them. But I gotta tell you, if this really were the case, both parties would have long since deleted those videos. Furthermore, they wouldn't have stepped any further into the limelight, taking on interviews and going on podcasts in the weeks preceding, essentially trying everything they could to keep that viral momentum. Regardless, friends and frenemies alike, I give you Terry Kemper, otherwise known as Terrbear on TikTok, creator class type, social justice, specialty, anti-bullying, claim to fame. Strap in and get ready, because this one's gonna make you angry. So this is yet another one of those accounts that flew under the radar for quite some time, with a little over 2,500 followers as of just a few days ago. However, it was only within the last week or so that people began to realize just who this individual was behind closed doors. Believe me, it is not pretty. But to truly understand the gravity of the situation, we gotta take it back to 2003, when Kemper was first found guilty of SA on a child under the age of 5. That being said, what y'all have been told up to this point is only a fraction of the rabbit hole that is this case. Not only has he admitted to doing the very same thing to a 4-year-old, but he was also found guilty in a completely unrelated yet similar instance on a 13-year-old as well. The following series of events will clearly show you the danger this individual poses to the platform. You see, during Terry's time at Racine Correctional, or RCI for short, he got into a dispute with the warden over certain materials he wanted to indulge in. Essentially, Terry liked to read anime, hentai, and manga comics. However, in his words, only 15 to 20 out of the 50 publications he had been requesting were actually approved for him to view. Publications depicting the exploitation of children. Well, Terry had such an issue with this, he actually ended up taking it to court. The man literally fought the warden for what he felt was his right to view that content. Now, his main issue with the denial of those publications were that they were subject to multiple reviews. Think of it sort of like a tier system. Upon the content's initial review, a separate, more thorough review by the facility's licensed psychologist may be requested. The psychologist then cross-references this material with the inmate's profile, ensuring the content doesn't interfere with the treatment of that inmate or anyone else in the facility, thus making the process for poor little Terry of obtaining his fix take even longer. And let's just say, he didn't really like that. More so, during this time period, there were several instances in which more than 100 pounds of publications were removed from his cell. Yes, you heard that right. There was so much material removed, they had stopped counting and began measuring it by weight. At any rate, this content was then sent to his mother's house for safekeeping until his release. But it was also during this time period, Terry was advised to participate in level 4 SO treatment. However, he was booted prior to his first session for refusing to sign a particular segment of the paperwork, a section pertaining to material he would no longer be allowed to purchase. In addition to this, he was also found to be yet again in possession of illicit material. Well, upon his release onto extended supervision in 2011, within less than a year, he had violated the terms of his agreement by engaging in physically assaultive behavior. Not only had he reverted to viewing that illicit content, but he had also been in contact with 3 separate females through Facebook who were not yet of age. And this is where things begin to rapidly spiral out of control. October of 2012, Terry was forced to participate in a rehabilitative program, but just 2 months in, he completely stopped showing up. 2 months later, in December of that same year, he goes to prison once again for failing to do so. Then in March of 2015, Kemper was released on probation once again. However, in January of 2016, he was arrested for contacting one of his previous victims through Facebook. Now keep in mind, the entire time this has been going on, he has failed to complete any sort of treatment whatsoever. And in doing so, Terry firmly believed he should have been allowed to view that illicit material simply due to the fact he opted out of the treatment and hadn't signed the paperwork stating he wasn't allowed to. And throughout the entire course of just about every single one of his incarcerations, he has battled this over and over again. Now, this may be a bit of a stretch, but I think I speak for a great deal of us when I say, thankfully his claim was thrown out and he was continuously denied said material while behind bars. That being said, Kemper was officially released once again in 2020, which leads us to what just happened over the past 24 hours. TikToker Tyler the Titan posted an extremely well put together video bringing the situation to light. I urge each and every one of you to check it out and give him the credit he deserves for doing so. It was at this point, larger creators such as Quinn Pratt, Tizian, and JD DeLay began to press the issue as well. That being said, although Kemper's main account was taken down, he has since created a backup, and word is, people in the background are currently working with TikTok to try and get it taken down. Lastly, although there is a dispute on whether or not Terry was a level 2 or level 3 SO, TikTok has a very strong policy against this type of behavior. It doesn't matter what level you are, your presence is quite simply not welcome on this platform. Friends and frenemies alike, I leave you with this.
You reveal your ignorance and your stupidity when you say that I'm level 3. I'm level 2.
I'll bet. Denice Frazier, otherwise known as Denice Frazier 619 on TikTok. Creator class tight, loves dogs. Specialty, like really loves dogs. Claim to fame, trust me, you really don't want to know. But for those of you who do, I'm not even going to lie to you. This is without a doubt one of the most peculiar and offbeat situations we have ever talked about in the entirety of this series. I mean, yes, we've covered a lot of truly dark and disturbing topics, just listen to yourself and let me know what you think. So when looking into Denice's history on this platform, we can fairly quickly find a bunch of these alternate accounts, with the most recently used being the one that ends in 619. And although her name is most definitely in the headlines as of now, she may have about 10,000 followers between all of these accounts. However, we all know by now this isn't why you're here, but I must tell you, this video is about to take a downright weird and disturbing turn. You see, back in February of this year, 2023, some girl out of Mississippi posted a Snapchat of herself quite literally getting it on with a dog. And before she could end up taking it down, it had been screen recorded, reposted, and redistributed amongst many different forms of social media, going absolutely viral in the process. Now, right off the bat, a few people began directing their audiences towards the TikToker's account, where she would ultimately begin posting these videos trying to put the rumors to rest that this was in fact her. Well, before too long, people began to take note of a couple of videos posted to her account. And while I can play them for you here, I do in fact have to mute them for copyright reasons. But for those of you who are just listening, I will describe them for you. The first video in question starts off showing her seductively sitting on her bathroom counter, then showing a bunch of money, followed by clips of her dogs. Then all of a sudden, about 3/4 of the way through the video, she shows a vibrator in her hand while still flashing through these clips of her dogs playing and then sleeping immediately afterwards. While the next video shows her quite literally twerking in front of her dog's face. Well, it was at this point a lot of people ultimately knew Denise had to be the one that posted that video, as one of the dogs in question also looked extremely similar, nay, dare I say, identical. But then, in the beginning of April of this year, Denise was arrested for filming and posting that video that had gone viral, while her dogs were taken to an animal hospital nearby. Sergeant J.D. Carter of the Jones County, Mississippi Sheriff's Office had the following to say: JCSD is in possession of several videos so graphic we are not at liberty to release them or even discuss the contents of said videos. In my 17 years of law enforcement, this is one of the most disturbing cases I have ever investigated, and the investigation into this case is still ongoing at this time. With that, Denise has officially been booked under charges of animal cruelty as well as charges of unnatural intercourse with a bond of $25,000. Ranyha Grech, Ranyha Grech, and Chloe Denman. Creator class types, I want to be famous. Specialty, for all the wrong reasons. Claim to fame, literally torturing their so-called friend in one of the most brutal acts of betrayal on the entirety of the platform. Well, on March 16th of 2023, the three TikTokers lured 14-year-old Kira Hart to one of the teen's homes under the false pretense of attending a sleepover. It was during the course of that night, Kira was literally bound and tortured for several hours, being slapped, hit, even going as far as to attack her with a knife several times during this session. And what's more is, they would film quite a bit of these actions, going as far as to literally post the evidence online. Well, after everything was said and done, those girls threw her out of the house, where her parents would later find her in serious need of medical attention. Just a few days later, the photos of the aftermath would go absolutely viral, sparking outrage in the days preceding the attack. And to make things even more sadistic, the three TikTokers would go on to use this as a ploy to become famous, essentially acting like they're these horrible versions of Jake Paul. But make no mistake, it's not like they talked smack about someone and then got into a little scuffle. They quite literally lured someone into one of their parents' homes, then proceeded to torture their victim and threw her out of the house.
So this TikToker just turned off his comments after people from all over the world began coming after him and his followers by the boatload. For those of you who don't know, this guy's name is John Romano. He shot up a school back in 2004. Here's what went down. In the weeks leading up to the incident, John had been begging his mom to buy him a shotgun, and after much persistence, she did. Then one night, the then 16-year-old wrote up a manifesto explaining he'd been fantasizing about blasting up his school for the past few years. That he was tired of being ignored, tired of not being seen, and that he was tired of being lied to by certain individuals. The next morning, he woke up, placed that firearm in a large black carrying case, then drove himself to school where he entered a second-floor bathroom. It was there John spent the next 20 minutes preparing himself for what he was about to do. But then, just as he began to walk out, another student walked in. That student fled back to class where he barricaded the room and informed his teacher of the situation. John then fired 2 rounds just above the head of 2 students entering the hallway. It's worth noting the spread came so close it quite literally knocked the hat off of one of those students. John then started
started making his way down the hallway, where he entered a classroom and just stared down several students prior to walking back out. He then fired one more round into the side of a door just before the vice principal grabbed him from behind. And as they struggled for control of the firearm, John fired one more round, striking another faculty member directly in the shin. Well, John was charged with attempted murder and would spend the next 17 years behind bars for his action. He was then released in 2020. But here's the thing. Just 2 years later, in January of 2022, he started posting on TikTok. However, it wasn't until December of that same year people began to realize just who he was and what he had done. Now hear me out, because I promise you I'm gonna make this make sense. Rewind back just 3 months to September of 2022. John is working at what is essentially a soup kitchen when a guy comes in and starts acting erratic, and John tells him, look, you gotta go. Just a few minutes later, that same guy came back wielding 2 swords and just started going to town on John. I mean, this was an extremely violent attack, and John almost ended up losing both of his arms and legs due to it. Well, over the months that followed, John began cultivating a rather large following of people solely off of this horrifying event. Now, at first, people being directed towards his TikTok by news outlets were seeing headlines such as "Guy working at soup kitchen attacked with swords." And by the end of that same month, those headlines changed from this to this, talking about how a school shooter from back in 2004 was attacked by a maniac with 2 swords. Only then did John actually post a video explaining what he had done, and surprisingly, people were extremely supportive of his objective. They stated he had been forgiven, that he had served his time, and that he had paid his dues to our society. But all that would change when John posted the following video.
I was in middle school when Columbine happened, and I remember being terrified afterwards, actually. I don't remember the day it happened. I never watched the news or anything, but I remember the atmosphere kind of changing in the school where suddenly everybody realized like somebody could come in and start shooting.
It was at this point, parents who had lost children in these types of situations began stitching his videos.
You'll never receive my respect. And even though that I wasn't even involved with the school shooting that you initiated and did, you will never get my forgiveness for it. And I don't feel sorry for anything that you have faced since then. You deserve it.
Why are you talking about me? Why do you got my picture showing on there? You're trying to get views and likes off of me. And my tragedy that I committed. So you are disrespecting not only me for what I went through, you're disrespecting my victims because you're not interested in bettering things. You're on here bullshitting with people. So
you care about the victims of I'm somehow hurting the victims of your school shooting while you're sitting on this app trying to garner sympathy because you were attacked by swords and I'm the problem?
What do y'all think? Dr. Kenny smiles. This TikToker with over 700,000 followers is no stranger to controversy. As a matter of fact, this is stated in his bio where he's proclaimed himself as the politically incorrect dentist, which in itself does seem rather mediocre considering all the horrible crimes we've discussed in this series. However, when you consider content such as...
I also said the last thing you posted. So
that's part of the song.
I don't care if people are gonna think I'm racist.
Not because it's part of a song.
I'm saying all the time. Me too. But I got in front of
It's pretty fair to say he's been pushing the boundaries just to see what he can get away with. However, we're about to take things to a whole new level. You see, back in 2013, Dr. Kenny Wilstead was arrested for fraud over prescribing medications to friends, patients, and himself. It is stated that DPS didn't notice this until they discovered he had been prescribing medications that were not even related to the dentistry field, such as sleep aids in extremely excessive amounts, and it was later determined he had prescribed over 800 painkillers over the course of 1 year to a friend. And we're just getting started. If we fast forward up into 2022, this is where his actions started affecting TikTok in particular. He ended up posting a video offering to fix popular TikToker Mama Tot's teeth free of charge. However, she rejected this offer, stating she'd much rather him do so for someone that truly needed the help. So he offered free smiles to 3 of her followers, where...
Oh my gosh, your teeth actually match your jacket. You ever like kissed a guy in those?
Yeah, my boyfriend every day.
You kiss your boyfriend with those in? Yeah, you're gonna get f***ed for the first time for sure.
And here's the thing. People at the time didn't really seem to have a problem with this video. Although yes, he ripped on her inappropriately, He did what he promised to do and followed through on his word with Mama Todd. But then on August 31st of 2023, Kenny posted the following video explaining that he's just opened auditions for a new show. In order to apply, viewers simply had to post a video with the hashtag DKCasting explaining why they would benefit from a new smile. And this is where things quickly spiral out of control. Not one, not two, but 3 individuals have since come forward recounting their alleged experiences with Dr. Kenny. This woman right here sent him a message explaining that she was hit by a drunk driver at a young age, and that she suffered a life of horrendous medical issues, including the fact she had lost all her teeth, to which Kenny responded, "Listen, this show is more than just a sad story, and with your size, you don't really fit the bill." Next, another woman hit him up on Messenger after posting a video under his hashtag, to which he responded. And lastly, he told another woman that he'd be flying out to meet some of the possible contestants prior to making a decision, but that he also needed 10 photos of her along with her sizes and that clothing was optional. Needless to say, these 3 videos have since gone viral, becoming the tipping point in what people are now saying is a well-deserved downfall. With that, Dr. Kenny Gone Wild has officially stopped posting on social media altogether. The only thing we can really do is wait and see what happens. What do y'all think?